right before my mission, it was really hard. When I was younger, I had a cousin who served a mission, a girl cousin who served a mission, and she's kind of been like a big sister to me. And so when she decided to serve, I thought it would be cool to serve a mission. And so when I was like 8, she was on her mission. I actually got baptized while she was gone, and it kind of had been in the back of my mind as I grew up. And then my early teenage years, my parents got divorced when I was about 13, and I kind of fell away a little bit from the church. Never went and rebelled tons, but just didn't really want anything to do with the church as a whole. But thanks to my young women's counselors and friends and their support, they brought me back, and I came back, and I was like so super stoked, and loved the church. I've always loved the church, but I think it always kind of been in the back of my mind. But when I actually made the decision, I was in Arizona, and I was walking around the temple with my best friend in Mesa. And we were talking, and she was kind of telling me about the temple because she was endowed. And so we were just kind of talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go in there in about a year and a half. And she like looked at me, and I was like, because I'm going on a mission. And that was the first time I had actually verbalized it. I mean, I had thought about it. It'd been on my mind, but I had never really said it out loud. And saying it out loud just solidified it. And I was like, I guess I'm going on a mission. Like, she looked at me, and I was like, no, I'm going on a mission. And so that was just kind of the start. That was probably, let's see, I was probably like almost 20 at that point. And this was before the age change, obviously. This was back in 2000 and that would have been like 2009-ish, 2008. And so that was just the start of it. And I didn't think anything of it. I said that, and I was like, I still have a time to go, so I'm not going to really worry about it. After my 21st birthday, or my 20th birthday, then it became real that I needed to start preparing. And I went and talked to my bishop so I could get the papers started. I actually had a really interesting experience when I was doing my papers. I filled them all out. And I remember when I got to the language part, I had taken Spanish in high school, and I hadn't done very good. And I was totally like, no, I don't want to learn another language. And I actually put myself on the lower end of the questions about, like, would you be willing to learn a language, or how confident are you in learning a language? And I think I put like a 2 and a like 3. So like I put myself at the lower end. And I finished all my papers, and then I was going back through them all just to make sure I had all my information correct. And as I got back to the language portion, I just kind of had this overwhelming feeling. You're going to learn a language, and it's going to be Spanish, and you need to be more true and honest with yourself. And so I was really mad because I was like, no, I don't want to learn a language. But I decided to change it, and I was like, okay, fine. And so I changed it, and one, because it was like, I know I didn't answer those correctly, and second, even if it doesn't matter what I answered, I was going to learn another language regardless. And so I filled out my papers, I sent them in, and I remember waiting for my mission call. And the week before my call came, all my friends were like, oh, today, it's going to come today. And I was like, no, it's not. And it didn't come. But then the next week it showed up, and my friend came home. I was living with my friend at the time, and she came home. We were going to actually go to the temple to do baptisms. And she's like, hey, did you check the mail? And I was like, no. And so I went outside, and the mail was there. And I remember opening all the mail, and the envelope was folded in half, and so I didn't see it, and I was like, okay, ads, no big deal. And then all of a sudden it like popped open, and I was like, or I got my mission call. And I had every intention to wait until that night, because I wasn't living at home, and so I wanted to make sure my family was on the phone when I answered, or when I opened my call. And And so she came back downstairs because she was getting ready. And so she came back downstairs and I was like, my call's here. And I didn't want to open it. And then it didn't take much. She twisted my leg. She's like, just open it. And I was like, okay. So I called my parents, and I couldn't get a hold of my dad, and I was really frustrated that I couldn't get a hold of him, but that's okay. And I took a couple phone calls to try to get a hold of my mom because she was currently on a road trip on the back of a Harley motorcycle across the country. So luckily they were stopped for lunch when I called her, so I was able to get her. And I remember when I opened my mission call, I don't know, there was a mixture of emotions. There was nervousness, there was excitement, there was, is this really happening? It was very surreal in my mind. And so I opened it, and I had a piece of paper, so I couldn't look ahead because I didn't want to see the call before I got there. And so I had a piece of paper, so I was slowly pulling it down because my friend was actually recording me as I opened my mission call. And my mom was on speakerphone, and so I was reading it out loud, and I remember that I couldn't pronounce my mission. I remember reading it, and I knew what Ecuador was, and I had no idea how to pronounce the word of the city. And so I think I ended up saying Quito because that's how it was spelled, but that was before I realized Q-U-I in Spanish is a key sound. So I got my mission call to Quito, Ecuador, and then it had my date that I was supposed to leave. And I remember being so blown away that I got called to Ecuador. Everybody, like my mom was like, oh, that's fun. Where's that? Like, is it in Central America? And I was like, no, it's in South America, and it's right where the equator is, because hence the name Ecuador. And it was actually crazy because I have had a love for Ecuador since I was probably 8. When the first time I heard Andean, like the folk music from that area. And so when I got my call, it was like a dream come true that I was going to a country I would love to go to. And so I was totally excited, and I knew exactly where I was going. And so I went and looked at a map and was like, okay, this is where I am, and trying to figure out what part of the country my mission covers. And I remember the first thing I did was I got on the internet and I looked up Ecuador, and I wanted to know everything that I could about the country. And I remember the very first thing that I read was that they eat guinea pig. And for whatever reason, that actually made me really excited. I was like, I can eat guinea pig. Like, actually, I think I already knew that, but like seeing it was kind of crazy. I was like, oh, I'm going to eat guinea pig. And I remember telling my entire family before I left, I'm going to Ecuador and I'm going to eat guinea pig. And they all looked at me like I was crazy, but whatever. So I got my call. When I got my call, it was June. It was actually right before Father's Day weekend. It was that week. So I got my call in June, but I didn't report to the Provo MTC until the 3rd of November. And I thought, why in the world do I have like a 5.5 month wait? I'm ready to go now, and I don't want to wait that long. But as time passed, I was actually grateful that I had that time, because I was able to spend time with my family. I was able to work and save up more money for my mission. And I was able to do more preparatory work before my mission, in the sense of what I'm getting myself into, and trying to get into reading, preach my gospel, and study habits. And